Coming up in today's video, a new card that turns food tokens into mana sources you can use more than once, plus a new sorcery that allows the curse roll tokens to really shine and take down the opponent's powerful creatures, and the next card in the Restless Cycle that deals with damage and loss of life. Let's jump into the video and take a look at today's Wild of Eldraine preview. Thanks so much for being here, guys. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to be notified whenever a new video is posted. We are covering Wilds of Eldraine for as long as spoiler season is going, so this is your one-stop source for that news. And if you guys want to check out the channel membership, QR code will pop up on the screen now. You can scan to take it to the page. It's $5 per month, and the month of August, all channel members get a free booster pack, plus a bunch of other perks, so check it out if you're interested, and you can join at any time. Now, Wilds of Eldraine spoilers have been rampant during spoiler season, of course, and we're getting some cards confirmed that were leaks earlier in the week, and so if I've already covered a card in a previous video from that leak thing, I'm not going to bother covering it again, but there are new cards, and there's actually a decent amount of commons and uncommons in the set that seem a little bit better than usual, so we'll see if that's just me or if you guys tend to agree on that or not. But we've got some cards up first, starting with Archon of the Wild Rose. 2 white, it is a flying creature that says other creatures you control that are enchanted by auras you control have base power and toughness 4/4 and have flying. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the Archons, there were some in Modern Horizons. I think it was Archon of Cruelty, and then I think there's been some other ones too in other sets, but it was cool to see a new one introduced here. But this is pretty solid, especially with the cards that can basically create roll tokens and turn your creatures into 4/4s with flying. I think this has a lot of potential depending on how things shape up with the roll tokens, and of course just with other auras in general. I like it a lot on the surface, and it's a shame it's not a legendary, because I actually think it'd be kind of a fun commander to sort of like build around auras and a bunch of lower cost creatures that, you know, you can bump up the base power and toughness of. But it's another solid Archon, and it's definitely a card worth keeping an eye on, in my opinion. Now, Ego Drain is up next. Ego Drain is one of the cards, we seem to get one of these in every set. It's either a Duress reprint or something that hits the hand. This one is 1 black sorcery. Target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land from it and discard it. If you don't control a fairy, exile a card from your hand. This is pretty powerful in fairy decks, and it feels powerful on the surface, but again, turn 1, it's not that great because you have to -2 yourself to get rid of an opponent's card. It's basically a watered-down Thoughtseize, and it does kind of make sense because, you know, Thoughtseize was a very problematic card in Standard for quite a while. People did not like it, and so I could see why they're kind of watering it down here. This isn't horrible, though. It's decent enough in the sense that, like, you could technically do some damage by getting rid of something problematic early on, but you have to wonder whether or not that's actually worth the risk that comes along with it. And otherwise, you know, you'd have to control a fairy, and there's not many ways in Standard you're going to be able to have enough mana to both control a fairy and activate this turn 1. So it's more lackluster than good, but it's certainly not the worst variant of that we've seen. Asinine Antics. This card is wild. It is 2 blue, and it is a sorcery. You may cast it as though it had flash if you pay 2 more to cast it. For each creature your opponent controls, create a cursed roll token attached to that creature. When a creature has a cursed roll token on it, what happens is it becomes a 1/1 creature, which is pretty fucking awesome, because what you can essentially do here is debuff a bunch of the opponent's creatures all at once, make them weak, and then, you know, combo that with other cards to get over them or swing at them. I think this card does have a ton of potential, and being able to cast it with flash is certainly cute. It does end up costing 6, which is not exactly ideal, but I like this a lot, and it's kind of cool that you can manipulate stats and just use this to get yourself out of a tough situation if you need it, while also being able to use it as part of a more combo-focused strategy. So I like it, and I like what they're doing with the roll tokens. So yeah, keep up the good work on that one. Into the Fae Court is 3 blue sorcery. Draw 3 cards. Create a 1/1 blue fairy creature token with flying, and this creature can block only creatures with flying. This is really just more of a draft card than anything. It's a little too costly to be good. Getting 3 cards is nice, but, you know, you only get the 1 token. It's not the worst card I've ever seen or anything, but I feel like if it costs 3 in a blue, it might be better. Even then, I'm not sure. No, 3 in a blue probably would have been good, actually, because you'd get the cards, and then you get the token as well. But as it stands, I think it's a little too costly at 5 mana. Emotes, the Pyro Hammer is 2 red legendary creature human knight. Whenever an instant or sorcery spell you control targets only a single creature deals damage to that creature, Emotes deals that much damage to each opponent. So a card like Strangle that costs, 1 mana and does 3 damage to target creature will also deal that much to your opponents, which right off the bat strikes me as having a really cool synergy with a lot of different commander strategies. You could build the deck around this with like a bunch of the low cost stuff that deals damage and take out creatures while hitting the opponents as well. This is an interesting one. Of course, it does have to target only a single creature, so there is that downside, but I'm sure there's ways to make that work, especially with how many things red has that is just, low-cost targeting cards. Hopeless Nightmare is 1 black enchantment. When Hopeless Nightmare enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card and loses 2 life. When Hopeless Nightmare is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, scry 2. You can pay 2 and a black to sacrifice it. I mean, it's solid enough to get scrying, but it works really well with the new bargain mechanic, being able to sack it off later after you've already kind of used its ETB effect, and then you get to scry. I think this is actually decent. I know people are going to look at this and think it's like absolutely wild and standard. I don't think it's anything game-breaking necessarily, but it's certainly cute. I mean, playing this in a pod even, like if you open this turn 1 and play it and you basically rip a card from every opponent's hand to deal damage and set yourself up. I mean, in some of the enchantment decks, like was Onyxia that I think just for Commander Masters, that recent Commander definitely is one of those cards that I think of that maybe this would fit into that deck. Just being an enchantment that's low cost and easy to drop and actually benefits you when it gets off the field makes this card worth considering. So it's really not a bad common at all. Corvold and the Noble Thief is 3 and a red. It is a saga. In the first 2 steps, they create a treasure token. The third one says, exile the top 3 cards of target opponent's library. You may play those cards this turn. Probably just draft filler, honestly. It's decent, but I guess creating the treasure tokens do kind of allow you to cast the opponent's cards that you exile, but I don't know. It's not really doing anything for me. Spiteful Hexmage is 1 black creature, human warlock. When it enters battlefield, create a cursed roll token attached to target creature you control. So as we established, the roll token is, making it a 1/1, but the trade-off is that you get a 1 black 3/2 creature, so pretty solid. Not a bad option to have in standard. I don't really see too much else unless you for some reason want to get a cursed roll token on something. I don't know of anything that benefits from having like the cursed token though on your end of things. Maybe there's something I'm missing, and if there is, feel free to let me know in the comments down below, because I'm always happy to, see what people think about stuff. There's no way I'm going to catch everything, right? There's interactions that are totally going to slip my mind, and that's why it's cool to be able to get some insight from people and interact. Now, for the next Restless Land, Restless Fortress is a white-black land. When it enters battlefield tapped, tap 4 white or black, and then 2 white-black. Restless Fortress becomes a 1/4 white and black nightmare creature until end of turn. It's still a land. When it attacks, defending player loses 2 life, and you gain 2 life. Now, this was revealed a while back. I just don't think I ever covered it. I had been planning on doing a short for it, and I noticed I never got around to it, so we're throwing it in here. Again, artwork is just top tier. These land cycle artworks have been amazing, without a doubt. This one actually seems solid, though. I mean, in standard, at least, being able to turn this into a creature and then swing as a 1/4, it's not likely going to be blocked. I mean, it's not likely going to die from blocking in some cases, and hitting the opponent for 2 life and then gaining 2 life, I mean, that's 10% of life in standard. You could really put some pressure on the opponent with this, and then, obviously if it does attack, hit directly, you're doing another bit of damage. I don't hate this. It's definitely not as strong as the Cottage, I don't think, but it's pretty interesting, and, once some of the Triomes and other stuff cycles out of standard and the land base kind of needs to update, I could see there being a role for these in certain strategies. And finally, ironically enough, I think an uncommon, the best reveal of this slate today, or what have you, Knight of the Sweet's Revenge. It is 3 and a green enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you create a food token. Foods you control have tap, add green mana. And then you pay 5 green, sacrifice Knight of the Sweet's Revenge. Creatures you control get +S until end of turn, where X is the number of foods you control. Wow, there is so much going on with this card. First of all, it's similar to like Jaheira, Friend of the Forest, which is a commander-only card, or well, Eternal format-only card. But like, that turns your tokens into mana dorks, basically. This turns your foods into mana that you can reuse each turn. So like, if you're playing a deck that can spam food tokens, like the new Samwise and Frodo, you can really just start to ramp mana extremely fast. I mean, I've played this deck, especially in Commander, online with like Mondrak, Doubling Season, Parallel Lives. Imagine you're putting out all these food tokens, and then suddenly they can start to be used for mana as well. This card is really, really strong. And, being able to be a mini Craterhoof Behemoth as well, on top of that, with the secondary effect, is just icing on the cake. No sweets, pun intended. But I'm really surprised this is an uncommon, because this feels like a super, super good card. And I'm excited to try and add it to my food deck and kind of see what I can come up with and what type of impact it has. For application in Standard, I'm not really sure. I don't know what we have in terms of, like, efficient food generation in Standard right now. A lot of stuff kind of cycled out. Obviously, the previous Throne of Eldraine had some cards that would do that, but that's not legal anymore. So we'll have to look at what everything looks like when, you know, the set reveal is done and we see if we get any more food generators. But this is a really, really strong card for an uncommon, and honestly, I think a card that could be exceptionally good in those commander strategies that play a lot of food tokens. So here's where I send it to you. Let me know what you guys think of everything we've covered in today's video. Do you think Knight of Sweet Revenge is as good and, you know, kind of sweet as it seems? Or is there maybe, like, is it being a little bit overhyped? I don't know. And, of course, we covered a bunch of other cards as well. Stay tuned to the channel for more updates on Wilds of Eldraine as they come out, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.